Hey guys, what is up and welcome to a new NVIDIA daily update video. So as per usual, let's go over NVIDIA stock in an absolutely unbelievable day in the market. So I'll give you my thoughts moving forward and all that good stuff. So if you enjoy, don't forget to hit that like button. This is not financial advice. I am not a financial advisor. And of course, if you enjoy my analysis, thoughts on the charts, etc., well, I do share my thoughts with my members every single day the market is open, just $3 a month. That link is of course down below, or $5 a month gives you access to the second tier, which includes NVIDIA. The first tier, of course, includes Tesla, sometimes other stocks as well. Link is below. I've been talking to my members all day, talking about these divergences, talking about these situations that are forming, and talk about how we're probably closer to a bottom than not. And what do you get? I mean, didn't expect this, obviously, but an absolutely astronomical rally of 20% on NVIDIA, closing at $114 per share, which is, arguably actually slightly underperforming the NASDAQ, to be completely honest with you, or QQQs, I should say, up 12%, but nonetheless, still pretty good. So what does this mean moving forward for NVIDIA? Is the stock saved? Is it all over? Is the bull market back? Or is this just a very large bull trap? I'll give you my honest thoughts down below right now. So jumping into it, again, not financial advisor if I haven't said it. Let's start off with, I want to start with the 1 hour chart on NVIDIA. 1 hour chart is very interesting. Why is the 1 hour chart very interesting? Because we are in, first of all, we're in overbought territory, number one. I mean, again, you have to understand, overbought doesn't mean it's going to top here. That's not what overbought usually means, right? Now, sometimes it's actually quite the opposite. What I like to look for better confirmation, personally, is divergences. So if I see a divergence, well, that's a completely different story. But we are still in overbought territory, so take that for what it's worth. But one other thing I'm looking at is that, we're roughly right around the top end of this rising channel, right? Massive fall, and then we started in this rising channel, and we're pretty much right at the top end of it right now. So, we'll see how tomorrow opens. Tomorrow pretty much has to open with the gap down on NVIDIA, or else this can continue to the bullish aspect. And I wouldn't be surprised to see, honestly, it wouldn't shock me to see about 118 to 120, honestly, tomorrow at this point, if we don't get a gap down, if NVIDIA does not gap down. If it gaps up even slightly, in my opinion, this actually, it's probable. It is probable that we see 118 to 120, honestly, as early as tomorrow. Very, very probable. But if we do get a gap down, we are contained within this channel, and I would expect the next move to be somewhere to the bottom of the channel. However long that takes, if it's very quick, it'll be back to very low 100s. If it takes some time, it can be somewhere around the 107-ish, 105-ish range. Really just depends on how fast it happens. If we get a gap down under, back into this channel, or contain this, I should say, within this channel. So that's something I'll be watching for. But the main thing I'll be watching for, honestly speaking, is a divergence. And now NVIDIA doesn't always give divergences. You can see all these signals up here when it topped out. You never really got a true clean divergence, right? Nothing really super duper clean, I would argue. So you're not always gonna get a perfect divergence, right? You're not always gonna get these perfect signals, right? But when you do, well, they're pretty potent. For instance, like this one down here when NVIDIA was tanking, beautiful bullish divergence on the 1 hour you can see here. And look at that. This was pretty much the bottom, right? Not perfect, of course, but man, it's damn close. And we've rocketed ever since. So I'll be looking at that potentially coming up on NVIDIA. We'll see how that actually occurs. But again, keep in mind, it is now obviously on the shorter time frames, a little bit overbought. So that's what I'll be watching on this, more intraday time frame type ordeal, if you will. The daily has officially reverted back to the mean. I'm actually gonna, okay, I'll talk about this first. So this trend line right here, this kind of white one right here, you can see this one here. We have broken out of it. That's a good sign. That is a good sign. I'm not a huge fan of this trend line. I personally, what I really care about, like, yes, that's good. What I really care about is breaking out of this one. Like, this is the one I want to break out of, right? That's the dreaded one. That's the one NVIDIA really needs to get the hell out of to really go to all-time highs, right? And where is that currently sitting at? Well, if it were to happen sometime this month, honestly, mid to lower-ish to 120s, right? Somewhere around the mid to lower-ish. We'll say mid 120s, around the mid 120s. If it can break above the mid 120s, that is all good news. But there's still, in my opinion, a lot of work to do. And I'll go over that on the weekly chart. But the daily chart, you can see over here, we have reverted back to the mean. You can see right over here, as we were kind of getting rejected constantly. And as we fell well below the mean reversion, where again, despite, whatever happens, what does the stock always do? Regardless if it's, skyrocketing or not, except for this, I guess, one instance here. But, more often than not, it zigzags kind of up and down between this kind of mean reversion, right? Constantly zigzagging up and down between it, right? Up, below, etc. So, the point is the fact that we were well below at this time, and today's pump pretty much just simply reverted it back to the mean. So mean reversion essentially complete, which is good. So that's that, I guess, right? I just figured I'd point that out, which is, why this pump was so aggressive. Reversion complete. But there's work to be done. There's work to be done. Like I said, to really get bullish, in my opinion. NVIDIA is still, again, all things considered, don't forget, it is still in a downtrend. Now we came down to this, massive, massive spot over here and held, which is good, but it's still in a downtrend. Technically speaking, as if, the pain and suffering hasn't been enough, it could still do something like this and make it to a down again to 85. Not saying that's going to happen, obviously, but as I said it over here, and it seemed impossible, and even up here, when I said that technically speaking, we can still make our way down here, we did. Again, I'm not saying that we will do this again. That'd be pretty crazy. But again, while we're within this channel, you naturally expect, I shouldn't say the word you expect it to happen, but you shouldn't ignore that possibility of happening. Just like you shouldn't have ignored it up here, just like you shouldn't have ignored it here, and just like you shouldn't be ignoring it right around here. Because that is still possible until proven otherwise. What is going to be proving this otherwise? Well, a breakout of this very powerful downward channel NVIDIA has been in for a damn long time. It's been in this downward channel since the end of last year, right? And it's still in it, and it's still got a ways to go to get the hell out of it. So let's see how that plays out in the coming days, weeks, maybe even months, right? Let's see how that all goes. But just keep that in mind, right? Something to watch out for sure. So those are the main things I'll be looking at on the daily channel, on the daily time frame in terms of just support and resistance. Just nice, simple support, resistance. Hold on, this is kind of pissing me off on the daily. Let me move this for a second. Current interval only. Let me go here. Current interval only. There we go. Much cleaner. The main levels to watch for resistance, absolutely, will be that 118 to 120 level. So like I said, if NVIDIA gaps up tomorrow, I think it's in play. I do think that NVIDIA will see 118 to 120 probably tomorrow, latest by Friday, in my opinion. And that'll be a massive area of resistance where I do expect it to top out. And if it gets to the top of this channel very quickly, mid 120s will be the next one, of course. And then I think it'll most likely top out here as well, if it gets there too quickly, I should say. So watch for that. In terms of support, right, you can even look at it on the 1 hour chart, pretty simple stuff, right? So that's the resistance, and this will be support, right? This level right here, this kind of 110s, 110 to 113, yeah, should be support now, right? Should be support, assuming this channel doesn't essentially put too much weight on the stock. If it does, and if it loses that, we most likely will make our way back down to about 105. Worst case scenario, if it happens really quickly and tomorrow's, CPI, don't forget, and tomorrow we just completely tank and reverse like half the move or something like that, which in this market, you never know, closer to $100 per share. Those are the main two levels to the downside, about 107 to about $100. Main two levels to the downside, assuming, of course, we give up this kind of, low 1-teens. Which I think if we get a gap down, we most likely will. So yeah, those are the main things I'll be looking at for NVIDIA. Now, the last thing I want to talk about, which is arguably the most important, is the weekly. The weekly, you guys know, has been absolutely crushing the stock. And, there's still work to be done, guys. There's still work to be done. It's absolutely, not done just yet. But there's two major signs, one bullish, one bearish, that I'm eyeballing on NVIDIA. The bullish one is the fact that as long as NVIDIA essentially closes this week, essentially Friday, above 105, nice bullish engulfing. Very sexy bullish engulfing candle, kind of like this one over here. And look what happened last time. It essentially, even on the weekly close, went from 130 all the way to 143. Not bad. $13 move. Not too shabby. So let's see how the week closes. I think this will be a very important weekly close again for NVIDIA. Do we get that bullish engulfing? We might. Absolutely. But that's the bullish perspective, right? The bearish perspective, and one thing I really will be upset about if NVIDIA closes below 110 but above 105, I'll be very upset about that, because that would mean that we still have the bullish engulfing. However, that would also mean if we close essentially below 110, that this pump right here is nothing more than a retest of this breakdown. That's all it was, right? Because don't forget, NVIDIA had this rising channel that could have been bullish, but it didn't continue. It gave up. It broke down below. So is this pump just retest? That's the question. I don't know, right? I don't know. You don't know. Nobody knows. We need to see how the week closes. And the main level to me is 110. If NVIDIA closes above 110, not only is it closing ideally slightly higher just to give it a bit more buffer room, but I would say honestly 110 to 112-ish for the sake of having a bit of a buffer room, if you will. If it can close above those levels, very bullish. I think that's very bullish. And I do think that, making its way back up to, 125, probably next week, most likely happening. Very high chance that does happen. And that would be a weekly mean reversion as well. Very high chance that happens. And then it even puts into play an actual breakout. And this could be a massive false breakdown. I actually think that'll be extremely, extremely, extremely bullish. Obviously, things can still fall apart in this kind of market, but that'll be an absolutely phenomenal sign. However, if NVIDIA closes below 110, and especially if it closes the week below 105, very, very bearish, and there's a damn good chance we might make equal lows. So that's the main thing I'll be watching for. Another crucial, very crucial, very important, potentially arguably monumental close coming up for NVIDIA here. One of the most important closes the stock has experienced in a long time coming up this Friday. And we have CPI tomorrow and PPI Thursday, Friday. So pretty wild stuff. And don't forget, we still have these EMAs, which there is hope. There is hope. We have the 8 did cross below the 50, but there's still hope, because if NVIDIA does get this bullish engulfing, if NVIDIA does close above 110, that'll be bullish. It actually can potentially, that actually opens up a path to all-time highs. And this would save the EMAs from getting a double crossover. Like I said, I only really care about this if it gets a double crossover. So that would save this from double crossover over-ing, I guess. I don't know if that's a word. So watch for that moving forward as well. But again, it really just comes down to, how does this week close? Can it close with the bullish engulfing while getting back within this channel or not? Absolutely vital. And that to me will determine what happens next. Either potentially very nice, reward for the bulls, or substantial pain for the bulls. And if we're not done yet. I think that's it. I think that's pretty much it. So yeah, let me know what you think down below. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow. Peace.